I hope to give you some insight on some commonly used typefaces that you can add to your font collection to help make picking out fonts much easier for your design projects. At one time, I had over 1,000 different fonts installed. I only used a small handful in the end, and I suggest you keep a special list of 20 to 30 hand-picked, commonly used fonts to use on projects. Not only will this keep you consistent, but it will make choosing that perfect font a lot easier. In the serif typeface category, there are several wonderful choices. Obviously, Times New Roman is the default serif font you see on most programs like Microsoft Word, for example. But have you heard of Didot, Bakersfield, Garamond? What are the differences between these typefaces? And how do I know which one to use if I'm interested in using a serif typeface? To understand this, we need to go way back in time to the first uses of serif fonts as we know them today. There are four main categories of serif fonts: old style, transitional, Didone, and slab serif. These are listed in order in which they were first used in history. Old style was used back in the olden days, where ye olde was a real phrase. Italian printers were interested in creating a type that was easy to read for book printing. Old styles are very easy to read in printed form, and that's because there's not a large difference or contrast in the thickness of the lines. Great example of an old style font would be Garamond, Berkeley, Minion, and Palantino. The next evolutionary step serifs made was a move into transitional. Transitional was established in the mid-18th century, and they're between old style and modern fonts, thus the name transitional. The contrast or the differences between the thickness and the thinness of the lines of the characters are more dramatic with transitional serifs. Instead of the more harsh endings, transitional fonts tend to have more ball terminals. Ball terminals are the rounded ends of the type stems, as opposed to the rough end, as in this example. Times New Roman is a classic example of a transitional serif font. Didone, or modern serif, was the next step in serif's history. They're characterized by the even more dramatic contrast between the thickness and thinness of lines in the typeface. Didot is a common and readily used example of a Didone or modern serif. Bondoni is another wonderful example and is commonly found in design programs as a default serif font. Take for instance Canva. It has this font available as a default selection. Didone or modern serifs are highly stylized, and it's no wonder they are commonly found in high-end fashion brands. Because there is a high contrast between the thickness and thinness of lines, you can put more spacing between the characters and add a very dramatic flair. A lot of famous brands use Didot as their chosen typeface, including Vogue and CBS, which is a major broadcasting network in the United States. They use Didot. I personally tend to pick a modern serif font when doing work for high-end clients, as those thinner lines seem to add a beautiful elegance that's hard to achieve with an old-style serif font. They also make for a dramatic poster headline with simple, solid backgrounds. The last stop in the history of serif fonts is the slab serif. Very different from its predecessors, this font was originally designed to demand one's attention on poster designs. They have very thick and bold lines with almost no contrast. Chunky, thick, bold, they certainly grabbed our attention throughout the years. They've even used slab serifs on wanted posters back in the Old West to make sure you took notice. And designers use slab serifs for the same reason. Have a political statement? Slab serif might be a good choice to command that attention. Rockwell is a great example of a slab serif. The IBM logo uses a custom font very close to Rockwell. Archer and Archer Pro are both slab serifs I use commonly in my design projects, and you can see a similar font being used at a large bank called Wells Fargo. Now that we understand serif fonts, let's check out sans serif fonts.